Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I'm Russ Coleman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is our match preview, our three keys to victory for Fulham against Newcastle United. We are live on YouTube. We are live on the Cottage Talk Facebook page. But if you want to listen back to this episode, you do have to become a member on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. Please do check that out. It's exclusive on there, but we are recording this episode live. We have a lot to talk about in this episode, but before I do anything else, I want to welcome my co-host back to the show. Mr. Gold, how are we doing?
I'm very good, Russ. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Are you excited for this match or worried about this match, or actually both?
No, I'm apprehensive, obviously, but I'm approaching it in a positive. Evening, Chris. I'm approaching it in a positive manner. And, look, we're on the back of 3 defeats. So, it's a game that we really have to win.
I totally agree that, and again, there are no moral victories here. I don't want to hear that they played well and got nothing from it. I don't want to hear any of that. A point at this point is disappointing. Now, I want to give a lot of respect to Newcastle United. I saw a little bit of how they played in the Champions League. Pretty impressive stuff. But Fulham beat Newcastle United twice last season. There's a reason for it, and I think that there is a path, not just for a point, but for a victory, and we'll talk about that. And that's not taking any respect away from Newcastle United. It actually gives a little bit of respect to what we know Fulham have and what they can do away from Craven Cottage. I feel pretty good about the match, but we'll get to it. All right, Tony, let's start with some team news. And there's some interesting team news that I want to share with you. This is from the presser yesterday. I think this is a good way to get started with the show because Fulham are dealing with a lot of injuries. Let's not sugarcoat this. They are dealing with it. So I'm going to share this from the presser from Marco. This is from our friend Jack Kelly, journalist, and this is what he wrote. And these are the quotes. Quote, "Some good news, some not so good. Kenny was already involved in the last game. He had a good week. We will be in contention. Joa will be out. Jedi out. Lukic in contention. Chukwueze and Muniz out. Wilson is a doubt. Let's see. Didn't train last 2 days." Now, this is from Thursday. All right, Tony, what do you make of all that team news? Some good things and some not really good things.
Yeah, well, obviously it would be a bonus if Kenny Tete's back in contention. If he's had a good week and he's feeling fit, then it's a positive to have him back in the side defensively. Obviously, Robinson, there's something just not right with him at the moment. Clearly, Anderson and Chukwueze and Muniz, obviously, good players, and we need them fit and we need them back. So I think there's going to be a few holes plugged this weekend. Certainly defensively, I would imagine Cuenca will continue to play. It's whether or not he brings back in Bassi or he goes with a bit of balance and sticks with Diop. It's going to be quite interesting to see what he goes with there. Cess obviously will continue at left back if Robinson's not around. I also saw that Harry Wilson might be a doubt.
That's right.
Training, and so this might be the ample opportunity to give Kevin his first start and get him involved. So, yeah, look, obviously it's not ideal having them out. It's good that Sasha Lukic might be back as well.
Yes.
But then, in my mind, it looks like it will be the Lukic Burger show in midfield again, and we've spoken about that. So, yeah, look, it's positive on one thing. Silver's right that we're going to have some good news having those players back, but obviously not great that we've still got some key players injured.
Totally agree, Tony. What's interesting here is Fulham's depth is being challenged at this point. And there have been seasons where they've dealt with it more than others. This one, they've really dealt with it. And like I said in the last show, this is where Silva has to make his money. This is where he needs to figure things out. Now, again, I thought he set Fulham up pretty well against Arsenal on performance level. We already talked about it. It was pretty good. They just did not get the rub of the green, and again, we could talk about some of the philosophies of zonal marking is really ultimately how they lost that game. But you know what? There are some positives to take from it. Now, what's interesting here is I am fascinated to see what Marco does with his starting 11 and his bench, and we're going to talk about it. And that actually will go to some quotes from Marco. I want to now talk about, because you and I have talked about this a lot. We toyed with the idea. What do you do in central midfield? If Lukic is available, that's a bonus, but then you have to think about the balance in central midfield. If you do Berger and Lukic, it limits you what you're going to do moving forward. I'm starting to have a problem with that. I really am. You and I have talked about it. I think for all the positives that it gives Fulham, it limits them in maybe more than it helps them. So I want to just share these quotes, which deals with Marco talking about Iwobi, talking about Josh King, talking about different options. And, he basically talks about the fans a little bit. So give me a second while I pull this up, Tony, because I think while I do this, just give me your thoughts overall of the options in central midfield.
Look, you know my thoughts on it, Russ, and I think that to go to Newcastle and, be ultra negative and keep 11 players behind the ball and try and hit them on the counter-attack, I think you're asking for trouble in that respect. What was very interesting about some of the quotes or comments that Silva made.
Yeah, they're up on the screen. If you're
he said that it was going to be Fulham have to be ruthless and aggressive enough and make sure that they make the right decisions. Well, in order to be aggressive, he has to play front foot football, Russ, and he has to have the players that are going to be brave enough in those situations. So if you're going to play Sander Berg and Sasha Lukic in your midfield, that to me is already a negative, environment and setup, because ultimately they don't give us what we need to go forward. And this is an ideal opportunity against the perfect opposition to play Josh King and Smith Rowe together in midfield with one of either Sasa Lukic or Sander Berg. That's my view on it. That's where I think we should be going in the midfield areas. And I know, a lot of fans will disagree because they'll say that Smith Rowe doesn't work hard enough off the ball and he doesn't give you enough defensively. But we've got enough defenders and enough quality there to defend. What we need is a bit more quality going forward when we break into the opposition's final third. And at the moment, we don't have that. Smith Rowe is that player that can unlock that door. And I think he would complement Josh King really well. I think there's this notion that these two players cannot play together. I don't agree. I think they can play together. I think that they have to be given the opportunity to play together. And I think that, in order to do that, Marco Silva needs to be brave. But you and I both know that we don't, he won't go down that road.
No, he's not going to go down that road. And I'm going to share these comments, and then I want to talk a little bit about it. This is from journalist Jack Kelly from the presser from yesterday. Silva on Iwobi playing central midfield. Quote, the fans have the right to think what they want. I don't know where it comes from. The fans have the right to have their opinions, unquote. Then there's another couple more quotes I'm going to share. Quote, I'm the coach. I have to decide. But they want Iwobi in the middle to take Josh King or Emil out, or they want to take Sander out for Alex Iwobi. I don't know where it comes from. I'm here not to answer the question. And one more quote that goes along with talking about central midfield. You already referenced it a little bit. It says, again, this is from Jack Kelly, another quote. Silva on the midfield batter, quote, we need to reach the same level of intensity to play in the way we want to play, to control them, to create, whether it's going to be Sander, Lukic, Harrison, Tom Kearney, or Josh or Emil, or like you said before with Alex, unquote. So, Tony, I read these quotes, and what reaches me, what gets me to think, it's almost this internal battle of him trying to figure out how to balance central midfield. But I think he's gone the other way, Tony. He's gone too defensive. And yes, I would like not to see Berg and Lukic play together. I think that makes him too defensive. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And the fact that Silva's come out trying to justify or trying to, answer what people are seeing is the fact that, he's feeling He's feeling the pressure of it. Look, Newcastle's strength are their midfield, right?
Absolutely.
Tonali and Joe Linton, if they get a grip of that game,
Bruno.
get on top of that game, they will pull the strings and they will make things happen. And they've got a lot of attacking threat. They've got a lot of players that can be very dangerous in the final third, and they will put us under a lot of pressure. And it's very important that we have to play better football than them in the midfield, which means we've got to have players that are comfortable on the ball, that are willing to break lines, that are willing to run in behind. Josh King will give you that. Emil Smith-Rowe will give you that. And you know what? It's not a bad shout. We talked about it the other day about putting Alex Iwobi in there as well, and actually taking Lukic and Berger out completely. Because
maybe that's what he's referencing.
Maybe. And you know what? I think with those three in midfield, suddenly you're going to have midfielders that not only can create goals, but can also go and score goals. And that's the difference. And I think they may not be defensively, good enough out of possession. But like I said, you've got to back your back four to defend 1v1 situations and make it difficult. And I think this is where the issue comes, and that the balance of, getting that right is where Silva is battling with at the moment, because the bottom line is we've lost our last 3 games.
So like I said, Tony, I think this really has started last season when they did not able to replicate what they had with Zhao. They couldn't replicate it, and they decided, okay, fine, we're going to bring in these 2 players. They're going to replicate it, but they really didn't. Because it's funny, I actually heard the Fulhamish guys talking a little bit about that. You know what Zhao Polina did that Lukic and Berger can't do? He offered a lot going forward. He absolutely did. These guys are offering you next to nothing moving forward. They are workmanlike. They do a job. But you need more creativity from that central midfield beyond one person. It needs to be at least 2. And they have gone with 1. They have gone way too defensive. It's way too less aggressive. It's not aggressive enough. It's not taking enough risks. This goes back to my idea. The reason why I call it safe silver partially goes to the Berger and Lukic tandem. I understand it sometimes against Liverpool, Chelsea, some of those teams, I get it. But they should not be playing the 2 of them against Newcastle United at St. James's Park. They should not be doing that. With all due respect to Newcastle United, who have a very good central midfield, you just talked about it, right? I would go the exact opposite. I would go incredibly aggressive. Like you said, I might even go so aggressive that I would do what you just said. Iwobi, Smith-Rowe, and King. That would be extremely aggressive. That would leave you susceptible. However, at some point, you got to let that back 4 play together and do it on their own. The protection's great, but at some point, you got to take the training wheels off that back 4. And I'm telling you right now, I think part of the problem is that they are just risk averse. I keep going back to that, Tony. He does not want to take a risk to leave themselves open, but sometimes when you take risk, you get the reward. He is limiting the amount of risk. That's why the matches are so close. We're going to nick it, right? How about going out and going up to St. James's Park and saying, we're going to take it to you? Because he's talked like that before. How about showing it, proving it by coming out with an aggressive starting 11 instead of a more defensive starting 11 against Newcastle? And I think it's going to be more defensive.
Well, anyone that watched Newcastle midweek in the Champions League against Benfica will get a very good idea about if you sit off like Benfica did at times.
That's what I'm saying.
Newcastle will punish you. And look, Anthony Gordon's playing very well. He's a danger. He's probably the player that everything's going to go through. We'll come on to their centre forward when we talk about lining up and the teams. But Harvey Barnes, bagged a couple the other night as well. And, they've got players, Elanga, they've got players that can hurt you, Russ. And, I always say, are we good enough defensively? And, with our record of not being able to keep clean sheets, the reality is that we will have to score more goals in Newcastle to win the game. on Saturday. That is the reality. So in order to do that, you have to have the players, the attacking flair, the quality on the pitch that can go and get you those goals. And as you saw against Arsenal last week, the way we set up, we didn't register a shot on goal. You got a centre forward who we don't get the ball to in dangerous areas, and it's you're not going to create anything like that. And surely Marco Silva knows that.
Right.
Surely he can see it. So if he can see it and he knows it, then surely he's got to change it.
Well, here's the thing that puzzles me, and I know we're talking about this, and when I watched Fulham this summer, getting ready for the season, I saw Smith Rowe and Josh King playing a lot together, a lot. Now, again, you had Smith Rowe out on the wing. I'm not saying you could do that, but if you can do it that way, I mean, I'm not saying you should do that, but the fact that the two of them can't coexist, I just disagree with. They can coexist because they have enough talent. You just have to mesh it together and trust it. See if it'll work, but he doesn't want to take the risk that it's going to blow up in their face. And then he doesn't have a plan B, Tony, because I'm going to talk about it right now. I think part of the reason why he doesn't take risk is that he knows he doesn't have a plan B, that his plan B is his plan A. He just sticks to what he does. He does not change it. And that's going to lead me to talk about this, because what drives me crazy, I have a lot of respect, and I think Marco Silva has been a great manager for Fulham Football Club. I could tell you so many positives, but the one thing that always gnaws at me, Tony, is this plan B dilemma, the lack of plan B. And I'll give you a couple of examples of why this bothers me. And it might be a little strange to people. I was thinking about this. I'm going to give a couple references to, say, a different sport. But again, hear me out on this. I'm watching my New England Patriots play, and their defense is getting shredded, Tony, in the first drive. My son complains about it all the time because they script out the first drive of NFL games. All teams do this. But then they adjust, Tony. They make adjustments. They will move the players around. They'll move the formation around. They'll change things up. They'll key on different things. Marco Silva doesn't do that. So it's almost at times, it's like, I believe in the system, I believe in this, and I believe in that. So all he will do is make changes that are like for like. He will not try to change the game. I'll always reference the Chelsea match at home. I did it last week, and I'm going to continue to do it. When Maresca had to change things at halftime. Hell, I saw Harry Redknapp one time do it against Fulham and completely change the game. And I'm thinking, why can't our manager, once another manager is moving the chess pieces around, changing everything around, why can't he try to change it back? That's what's frustrating. So I want to dive into the plan B dilemma a little bit with you.
You know what, Russ? It goes deeper than the plan B dilemma, because as you know, when we set up at set pieces, what does Marco Silva continue to do on a regular basis every single game?
Zonal marking. We've talked about that. That's
Exactly.
being pig-headed. That's being very stubborn in my book.
Exactly. And the amount of goals that has cost us this season and even last season, and to not even consider, changing it, or at least looking at it and thinking, okay, this isn't working. How can we set up differently, in these situations? Tells you everything you need to know. He reverts to type. He likes to stick with what he knows. He doesn't like to change things up. And unfortunately, if we go behind in games, like you say, unless Marco Silva's sitting there and looking at either changing tactics, changing shape, looking at personnel, then yeah, it's like for like. And very rarely do we manage to turn it round or pull it back, unless, of course, one of the subs that he makes, happens to come good and we get a bit of luck. But It's certainly an area in Marco Silva's development, or certainly in his managerial career, if he wants to progress and move forward, he's got to start thinking about implementing some kind of plan B somewhere along the line. He has to. But
our history with him going all the way back to the championship is that we haven't seen it, right? I've not seen the want. I'm sure he has the ability to do it, but I've not seen the want. It's almost like this is my way or the highway. Like you said, this is the way we do it, and I'm going to continue to do it because eventually it's going to work. But I will just tell you, I've seen it too many times that it doesn't work. And I will tell you that some of the best managers in any sport, the ones to me that really make the difference are the ones that are willing to say, you know what, I didn't get this one right this week. I need to make a change to offset what they're doing against me. It happens in all sports. It happens in football. So why will he refuse to do it? Because it's his way. It's continue to do it his way, Tony. Oh, I guess we got a visitor.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, but no, listen, I thought I would start by talking about that. And any final thoughts you want to talk about the plan B?
No, look, I think, like you said, I think tomorrow at some point, there is going to be a moment in the game where, he will have to look at it and think about changing something. But you and I both know that will be, as we've spoken about, it will be player for player, like for like, and it will be on the premise or the hope that one of those players coming off the bench is going to be able to produce a bit of magic from somewhere or something. Right. I cannot see him reverting to a 4-4-2 and suddenly, or 4-3-3 and sticking 3 players up front, or going with 2 up front and maybe even going through it. It just won't happen, Russ. It just won't happen.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned he won't do 4-4-2, but I'll even use the example. He will change the formation. He will play 3 at the back. He will do this, but it's still within his system. But he won't change it really during the match. I think there have been a few times where he actually was forced to, or he decided to. But more often than not, it's still within his system. Sometimes you need to make dramatic changes, my friend. And like I said, where there's a risk, sometimes there's a reward. And he's risk averse. He doesn't want to take risks. He would rather play it out this way, keep it close, and see if we can nick a goal. And I really hate that. Yeah. It's effective and it works. And I have a lot of good things to say about him, but this is one that I just can't get behind. I can't get behind a manager that will really refuse to go to a plan B. And don't tell me bringing on Tom Kearney is a plan B. That's not a plan B. That's not a plan B. It just isn't. It's not a plan B. All right, Tony, let's move on. Let's get into this match by talking about Newcastle United. I want to get your thoughts on them. The one thing that really stood out for me is their striker up front. It's funny. They lose Isak. They bring this guy in. I'm not saying that they're better, but they have spent their money wisely. They've gotten some really good players in, and they've added to their mix. So for all the negativity that I've heard on Newcastle United, they might actually be a better team right now. So what do you make of Newcastle United? I know where they are on the table. Throw that aside. Let's look at the team that Fulham are playing right now. They're a good side. They're a very good side.
They are a very good side. They're very well organised. Eddie Howe's a very good manager. He's proved that. He's shown it. If you're a betting man and you like a little bit of a flutter on a bet, the bet tomorrow is Nick Waltermaid scoring a set piece from a corner or a free kick outside our box with his head. Guaranteed tomorrow to happen, 100%. He's a handful. He's dangerous, and that's why I think that when we come onto it and talk about it, that's why I think Marco Silva might go with Issa Diop tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because of the physicality and because, height for height, like for like kind of thing, that he'll want him to do a job on him. That's certainly how I would go anyway. Yeah. But yeah, look, they've got players in every position that can cause, problems. As I said, they're very organised. They like to play through midfield. They've got players that like to get on the ball. Tonali has to be watched. They have to get on him early. They have to stop him playing. And you know what? It's not going to be an easy game. They are playing well. They played very, very well the other night. They're everything they are everything that you want Fulham Football Club to be on the pitch.
Sure.
How they play their football, free flowing, brave. Front foot, get it wide, get it into good areas, get it to the front man, and Silva could take a lesson or two out of that playbook, really. Yep. But we're going to have to match them in every area, and we're going to have to be better than them on the day. And I think we do have the players to do it, but everyone is going to have to play a 7 or 8+ in order for us to get a result.
Okay. So I'm glad that you talked about Gordon. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, is it Waltimode? Did I say that wrong? I don't know if I'm saying that wrong.
Waltimade, yeah, I think.
Waltimade. Okay.
Like yeah.
Alanga, okay? They're dangerous, but what really scares me, and this will go into my keys to victory, are the three in central midfield. Joel Linton, Tonali, and Bruno Guimaraes are really great. Fulham did a wonderful job last season. So that's why I think that this is going to be key. How do they handle those three and take advantage of those three if they can? That's where I think is a big part of the match. And of course, you got a very good goalkeeper. I mean, listen, they're solid all around. So this will not be an easy match. However, going back to this, Fulham have a chance to do something here, Tony, because I'm going to say it, have a blueprint from last season. Marco will know how to play against Eddie Howe's team. They'll be prepared. They better have a very good plan, because the problem is they don't have a plan B. So their plan A, whatever Marco sets up for them to do, they're going to have to do, and they're going to have to be able to do it for 90+ minutes, because this is going to be a very difficult ask, but it's not insurmountable. It's something that they can accomplish. They did it last season. They can do it again this season, but they have to get it done. And I think that's why I like doing 3 keys to victory. So I'll get us started with number 3, Tony. And I think a big one for me is playing on the counter. This is something that they were excellent at last season when they were at St. James's Park. They're going to have to play on the counter, and they can be effective on the counter, but they're going to have to take advantage of their opportunities. And that's something that I've not seen them do. Why not shoot from distance? Why not take some shots? But I think they're going to have to break quickly. For me, this match is really going to come down to, I'm going to mention my other keys, but I think breaking quickly on the counter is going to be very important. Well, what's your number 3?
Being organised and disciplined at defending corners and set pieces. You know, we cannot, you know, I will be absolutely astounded if Marco Silva lines up tomorrow from corners zonally again, given the fact that, you know, the amount of goals that we're conceding from those situations. He obviously, I mean, he probably won't change it, but it will infuriate me if I see us lighting up zonal marking and we end up conceding another goal tomorrow from those situations. For me, the major key tomorrow is that defensively from set pieces, we have to defend well. We have to defend well. I
totally agree with that. That's a good number 3. Number 2 for me goes back to what we've already been talking about. I think this match, 100%, Tony, is going to be won in central midfield. His decisions on who he plays is going to play a factor here. But they're going to have to figure out a way, because I have a feeling it won't be what I want it to be. But I think Josh King's going to be part of it. So I think he is going to have to really take it to Newcastle United and really be a factor here. So I want to focus on central midfield, but I really want to put a lot on Josh King. I talk about him a lot, and you could see it against Arsenal. Eventually, the goals are going to come, Tony. I think it's just a matter of time. The question is, will he get 90 minutes? I don't think that's going to happen, but I think the midfield battle, but specifically, I want to see Josh King thrive in this match.
Yeah, and my would be very simply Kevin, Smith-Rowe, Iwobi, Josh King, and Harry Wilson need to start tomorrow in those midfield areas, because I think if you play with that creativity and that amount of quality with you, which you've got across all those players, then you are taking the game to Newcastle. You are being brave. You've got quality there. You can get balls into areas, and you've got players that can basically make things happen. And you know what? It's time now to unleash Kevin, give him some game time, get him involved, get Smith-Rowe game time, get him playing, and let's start seeing the player that we bought, you know, the players that we spent over £70 million on, they need to start playing. And that's key tomorrow for us.
Okay, totally agree. All right. My number one key to victory is one that I use a lot, but I think, especially here, Tony, with all the injuries, with everything going on, going out to St. James's Park, a lot, I think, is going to be decided on the decisions by Marco Silva and winning the coaching battle. So I know that Eddie Howe will have his team prepared and will have them set up properly to beat Fulham. I feel Marco will be doing that as well. But his starting 11, his bench is going to tell me a lot. It's his decisions that I think, if he gets it right, I know he won't do what I want him to do, but if he gets the decisions right that put Fulham in the position to win at the end of the match after playing the Champions League, I can see Fulham pulling off the victory. They need to be in position in the last 30 minutes. If he can get them there, then Fulham have a chance to win this match.
Yeah, good points. Absolutely. For me, my number one, Russell, is making sure that we get Raul in the Newcastle box, in and around the 18-yard box, and that we get the ball to our wide players. Hopefully that will be Kevin, Harry Wilson if he's fit, if not Traore, whoever it will be. And they've got to get the ball into those areas. And we've got to have runners from midfield, Josh King, Iwobi, whoever it is, coming deep from deep into the box, and we have to be attacking their box in the 18-yard box, and we have to get the ball, and we have to get Raul in the right areas. We didn't do it against Arsenal at all. We might as well have been playing with 10 men, to be perfectly honest, even with all the effort and work that he got in there. You have to do it, and if you don't, then you are literally sitting back and you are going to be waiting for Newcastle to open you up with the quality they've got. And the problem is, Russ, if we go a goal down tomorrow, it's going to be a very, very difficult afternoon for us.
I tend to agree with you on that, Tony. I do. I think we went down a goal last season. They were able to overcome it, but I think the situation's a little bit different this time. But we shall see. All right, let's do this. Let's go to the starting 11. Let's always start off with what you would do, what I would do, and then we'll try to figure out what we think Marco's going to do. Give me your starting 11 to play against Newcastle United, then I'll go to mine.
Yeah, sure. So my starting 11 would be Leno in goal. Tete, if he's fit, would come in straight away at right back. I would go, having thought about it, I think, however well Cuenca played last week, I think I would go Diop, Cuenca, and Sessegnon. And I think the reason I'd go with Diop is because, like I said, for like, I think he could do a job on Walter Maid. Then in midfield, I would go Iwobi, Smith Rowe, Josh King.
Wow.
I'd go Kevin, Traore, and I would go Raul up top.
Wow. Whoa. Okay. I actually really like that. I like that a lot. I do like starting Cuenca, though, to be honest with you. I was just thinking while you were saying it, and it's interesting. So you would go Kevin and you would go Traore.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know if he's going to be available. Let's say he's available. I will go Kevin and Wilson. Wilson will be my only change. I'll say Kevin and Wilson. That's where I'm going to go, because I actually agree with all that. He's not going to do that. He's absolutely not going to do it. Tony, this is what I think he's going to do, and let's see if we end up right. The
reason I would go with Traore, Russ, sorry to interrupt, is because
for the counter?
Dan Burn lacks pace, doesn't he? He's not the quickest. And I think with Traore, if you can, isolate Dan Burn in those 1v1 situations,
that makes sense.
Get Traore at him, playing him slightly higher than you normally would, I think he could cause them a lot of problems. I really do.
Okay. I kind of like that. Okay. So what I think he's going to do is he will go Tete. I'm going to say he's going to go Diop, Bassi, Sess. On the left, he's going to go Iwobi. On the right, he's going to go Wilson. He's going to go Lukic, Berga, Lukic, Josh King, and Blue up front. That's what I think he's going to do. What do you think?
Completely agree with you.
Okay.
Completely agree with you.
So,
I think Bassi comes back in definitely.
I think Bassi comes back in, even though Cuenca did nothing wrong.
No, because I think he wants balance there, Russ. I don't think he'll play two left-footed centre halves. I think he'll have and I think you're right. Berger and Lukic are nailed on to start because he won't break away from that.
No.
Josh King will start. If Harry Wilson is fit, if he's not fit, Russ, because there's a question mark about him, then Kevin, I think, is likely to start with Iwobi on that side, and it will be Raul up
You
front.
can flip Iwobi over to the other. Yeah, I mean, that's easy. That's easy. You can do that. So I just, like you said, I think a lot will come down to the fitness of Harry Wilson. I'm glad that you brought that up because I think if Harry Wilson's good to go, he's going to go to Harry Wilson. If he's not, he's going to go with Kevin. But I don't see him starting Kevin, even though it's the right thing to do, because, again, it comes back to the risk of the not knowing what you're going to get from Kevin. But I think at some point when you have all this money sitting on the bench, Smith Rowe included, what are you doing here? You spent all this money and it's on the flipping bench. At some point, it's funny over here. Do you know how much Silva would be criticized over here if it was a Boston team putting all that money on the bench? They'd be trying to get him out of here. The criticism on Silva would be off the chain here for putting those players on the bench. Are you kidding me? So the fact that we don't, I don't get, because again, I think when I listen to a lot of shows, when I read a lot of things, I think, Tony, in my opinion, there's fear to criticize this guy. I think he's a great manager. I will say that till I'm blue in the face, but I have a right to criticize some of the philosophies of Marco Silva and say, you know what? I wish he did it this way. I'm a fan. You're a fan. I'm not just going to accept, well, he's Marco Silva. He knows better than me. Well, why watch? Why voice an opinion? Because football is about opinions. And I don't like the fact that he doesn't have a plan B. I don't like the fact that he's going to set up so negatively against Newcastle United. And I know it. And I know it. And I know he should be starting Smith Rowe and Josh King together. And oh, by the way, starting Kevin. But you know what? He's not going to do any of that because he is safe Silva. Simply put, safe Silva, Tony.
Yeah, and again, all good points. And look, Russ, I think it's right that he comes under scrutiny because the fact of the matter is that the last 3 games haven't been good enough. People will say, oh, we only lost 1-0 against Arsenal and it was a good performance. Yeah, to some degree, people are right. But it was still a loss. It's still an L. And it's still another game where we haven't kept a clean sheet. It's still another game we haven't scored a goal. It's still another game where we haven't created any chances. So, if he doesn't get a result tomorrow, Russ, he's going to be coming under more scrutiny because, it doesn't get any easier. No. And as I said to you after that, we've got 3 massive games that they have to be games that Fulham win. Yeah, it's as simple as that. Agree. And he's digging a very big hole if he comes away from St. James's Park tomorrow with nothing. I mean, it's a whacking great hole. So, yeah, look, he's under pressure that he doesn't want to be under. But ultimately, he's the one that's making the decisions. He's the one that's making the choices and the changes and picking the team. So ultimately, that's his responsibility. That's what it falls on his shoulders, Russ.
Right. And I'm going to just share this from our friend Chris's. If he's not going to play them, then why sign ESR and Kevin? That's a wonderful point, Chris. It really is. And that's the thing that gets me is that Marco's way is he usually it takes a lot of time to get in this guy's plans. It really does. And again, he has been consistent with this. So this is a consistent thing. He has done this. But when you've spent this kind of money and you are now in year 2 of Smith Rowe and he's coming off the bench and you have this kid that you bring in that you spent 40 million pounds on and he's coming off the bench. I'm sorry. At some point, you got to throw him in the deep end. You got to start both of these. But again, people will say, well, he sees them in training, Russ. I know he does, but I also know how much money they spent. Make it work, Marco Silva. Make it work. But it's his way. It's his team. It's his team. But I have a right to criticize his team. All right, Tony, let's get to it. I'm going to sound negative, but I'm really actually not as negative as I might be sounding during the show. Give me your prediction. And if you're watching live, feel free to share your prediction.
Yeah, I've gone backwards and forwards with this run, Russ, and however much I want to lead with my heart and say, yeah, Fulham are going to go up there and get a result and play, really well and all of that. The reality is, at the moment, I don't think we're playing well enough. I don't think we've got enough attacking threat. I don't think we're defending well enough, and I believe that we are going to suffer a 2-0. I think it will be a 2-0 defeat. I can't see us. I just can't see us scoring a goal tomorrow, Russ. I just can't see it. Knowing how Silva is going to set up. And I just don't think we've got enough about us to keep a clean sheet and not concede defensively.
Yeah.
I think Newcastle have got too much. So, and the fact that we lost at Villa, we lost at Bournemouth, we're not travelling very well at the moment. So, yeah, and there you go. Chris has said it. Not brave Silva 2-0, and I agree. I can't see anything other than a 2-0 defeat.
Okay. So I think Chris really nailed how I'm feeling, because if he goes with type, it's going to be 2-0 to Newcastle United. But as I said, if he could prove me wrong by his decisions, like I said, if he wins the coaching battle, makes the right decisions to set Fulham up to win this match, make some surprises that we're not expecting, is a little bit more aggressive in this starting 11, then I could see Fulham pulling off the upset and winning 2-1. But heart of hearts, I'm going to go with you, Tony, and it pains me to say this. I'm going to go with 2-0 to Newcastle United, but I'm just saying it's up to them to prove me wrong. I think it's possible that they could win this match, but if I'm going with my head says no. 2-0 to Newcastle United, and it has a lot to do with how I feel Fulham are going to be set up, and also that I think Newcastle United are a good side. It's a combination of the two. So that's what I'm going to do with that. All right, my friend. Final thoughts before we wrap up the show.
Yeah, look, whatever happens, tomorrow's going to be a tough afternoon, and we're going to see, what character this Fulham team has got, Russ, because they need to show a lot of character tomorrow. It's not good enough really to come off a defeat against us. Oh yeah, we huffed and we puffed, and we did all right, and so on and so forth. Yeah, we did all right, but at the end of the day, I know it's a cliche. This is a results business, and we need the points, and we need 3 points tomorrow. But in order to do that, Fulham are going to have to bring, as I said, their A game and play exceptionally well. Yes, they are capable. And if Marco Silva sets us up right and gets the right team out, then yes, I agree. Absolutely. But let me say this again, Russ. If we don't get a result tomorrow, then the next 3 games, Wolves at home, Everton away, and Sunderland at home, are absolutely critical. And we cannot afford to get anything less than 9 points in those 3 games. It's that simple. Because after those 3 games, we've got Tottenham, Man City, and Palace. And, it just becomes so much more difficult and much harder to, get the confidence going and not start to feel the pressure, because suddenly you're in that dogfight, and we need to avoid that. So, look, it would be a very Fulhamish thing to do tomorrow, to upset the apple cart and go there and get a result and win.
Yeah.
And we're all scratching our heads coming away thinking, where the hell has that performance been? They are capable, but yeah, at the moment, unfortunately, it's quite difficult to be positive because we're not playing that well, and we don't look like we're creating anything. So, as I said, Newcastle will score tomorrow. It's whether or not Fulham can outscore them and go and win the game.
Okay, very good. All right. Good stuff, my friend. Very good stuff. And listen, I might be sounding a little bit more negative than usual. I got to be honest with you. Like I said, there's a part of me that wants to believe. I want to believe. And I think this is a crucial game. And I love that you put it this way, Tony, on Marco Silva. Because if they lose this, whether it's 2-1, whether it's 1-0, doesn't matter what the result. If they lose this, I agree with you. The pressure is going to start to mount on Marco Silva. It really is. He's going to start to feel the pressure. So for me, there's a lot riding on this. And I know the players like to play for him. So let's see if they can get it down. Chris, I'm going to leave us with a positive for me. This is personal. Yes, Patriots to beat the Browns. Thank you, Chris. That makes me feel a little better. I hope you're right on that. By the way, Chris, just so you know, I'm going to the game the following week against the Falcons for my son's 18th birthday. We're going to the Falcons game. So just to let you know. And I know you'll be excited about that. I'll share all kinds of information with you on that privately. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. He's Tony Gold. I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.